Alright, now I want to show you how to do color corrections on materials in UDK rather than keep running back to Photoshop for it. So we're going to look at a couple features in the material editor that you might find that's a little useful. Let's look at the brick. So the one thing about this brick is that I notice it's very white and very boring as far as the grout lines are concerned. And I thought it would be kind of interesting if we just added a little bit more grunge to it. Well, for right now, you just add a texture sample and a normal map. And with this, I want to show you a few things about color correction using math. Okay. Now, if you right-click here, you'll have this pop up. This is much easier to find things than the property window over here. Expressions, they can get quite long and tedious to go through, but if you notice, like if I go to color, but if I go to color here, there it is. So if you have something that you use over and over again, just kind of memorize where it's at. What that one thing, texture, right? Texture under texture sample, I use that a lot. So there it is. Well, there's this whole area, math, that's fun to play with. And I would say if you're new to this, you should probably find an area to concentrate on and try that out just through experimentation. So I'm going to break the link here. Part goes black. Just going to kind of move this over here, and I'm just going to make several different nodes from math. Let's concentrate on the ones that we know. And those are add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay. We've been using these for a very long time in our existence, so let's learn how to use these first. We won't get to all of these in this class, but at least some of the color correction ones and some of the maybe moving around UV ones later on. But for right now, these are the good stuff. Alright, well, I need another texture, and I like this cement. I always kind of pull a texture from my already existing library because remember, as I was designing the textures, I was worried about color. So these have matching color next to each other. This one right here, for example, again, you can hold T on the keyboard and left click. That'll bring in a texture sample that's highlighted. And I'm going to plug this one into every B with the black, and this one into every A with the black. Okay, so this one's B. This one's A. And this is a great way to do experiments. Now, watch the sphere as we add or break the channels. So here I'm going to add the diffuse. And with the divide, I get this really white, kind of weird material. But this is a great way to judge how good your normal map is. Okay, in this case, the normal map looks a little flat to me. I might want to fix that up later on and make a deeper normal map. So let's right click here and break link. Let's go to multiply. Wow, multiply is amazing. Okay, so this is exactly what I wanted. Again, if I did this without the multiply, I can just drag this over here. See how bright white that is? Let's take a look at what it does in the engine real time. Let's take multiply and go over to diffuse and hit the check mark. Bam. Yep, that's exactly what I wanted. Now the one thing about this is I would have to make sure that all brick got the same treatment. In other words, these little bricks right here, these blocks, would have to have the same treatment if they were separate maps, but they're not. They're one map, so I can color correct the entire unit all the way across with just one node. So I don't have a separate texture for this, a separate material for that. They're all the same material. Alright, let's break that one. Let's go to subtract. Much different stylized look, no doubt about it. I can see now I had to shrink these up a little bit because they are backface culling. Incidentally, this is what when I say backface cull, I mean the shimmery stuff that happens when two faces meet on the same plane. Okay, let's go to add. Alright, so add just takes two values over here and puts them together. And you can see that's a very washed out, desaturated look. Ew. Well, you can also use math on itself. In other words, you might find I like multiply and I did like subtract. Those two were nice together. So what I could do is go like this. Now if you need to highlight many of these, hold Control, click and drag, just like that. So I liked subtract and I liked multiply. Let's add those two together. And it's a little strong. Now if I needed to tone down a color, say I needed to tone down the subtract, right? Well, I could take this, break the link, and anytime I'm talking about toning down something, I'm talking about I could either add it to a color or I can multiply it by a color. In this case, let's subtract it by a color. Or, no, add it to a color, sorry. Okay, I like this one. It's just a little bit too bold. So what I'm going to do is choose something else to add to it. So right click. And let's go to vectors. Now I can use vectors as 2, 3, or 4 constant. This is RG, this is RGB, and this is RGB with alpha. So let's go to something like, I think a 2 vector will be fine. What I need is a red or a brown, so I gotta kind of formulate that. If I put 0.25 together with, let's try 0.10, I get some kind of brown. Now that's just me knowing, how to get brown. But you can experiment around and try different shades. So if you put 18%, you get a little bit higher value of brown. Anything higher than that, you start getting green. So let's add those together. So now I'm adding a color to something like this. And it says node add between type float2 and float3 are undefined. Alright, well, what happens is this is a float3. This is a float2. I just want to show you that when you get this error, it's because you're trying to put an apple and an orange together. Okay, so right click, go vectors, go 3 vector. This one has the RGB value. Again, I could put in, what was that, 0.25 and 0.18-ish, and you get that same color. I can delete this one and then add this one. In this case, it works because this is a 3, and I'm adding RGB values to an RGB world, and I get this, which is I like this. This is nice. But I think I would even like it nicer if it was multiplied by it. So let's break link. Add these two together. It's not too bad. Again, I always kind of want to see what it looks like in the engine more than this preview window next to each other. I would say it's really highly saturated. Could we do anything about the saturation level? If you go color, new desaturation, we have a desaturation node. How do I desaturate it? Well, I could go, this says something like percentage, okay? So actually I want to connect it here, break the link, break this link, and it says a percentage. Well, how do I add something to that as our percentage goes? Well, there are consonants, so I can add that. A constant is just a number, so I can plug that in. And right now the number is 0. Over here, I can change that number to something else, like let's say 25. I get pure white. So that's highly desaturated. So desaturated, in fact, that it is ranging on blue, or highly saturated, sorry. So in this case, 0.2. It's a little bit better. 0.5. And you can see what happens here. I'm losing some of that very bright attribute to the brick, and it doesn't look as bad now. So I think what I'm trying to say is I want you to experiment with this stuff. There is no right or wrong value, except for I don't want students making like pink bricks. I freaking hate that. You know, keep to realism. If you want to play around with that stuff, certainly you could do it in your off time. But I really hate it when students blow out things just to make like orange bricks because they want to be trendy. Stay away from that in my class. I like realism. I like to be able to see nice colors next to each other. Alright, so that's how to color correct using different nodes. There's more answers, but for right now that'll get you by.